So you just keep asking.
Hello. Welcome to our final program of our regular season. Before we get started, even though this is our last program, I do still have announcements. So downstairs you'll see some bookmarks. It's got 2 QR codes. This is about our current expansion. We have bought the former Levita Elementary School, and we're trying to get it rehabbed and opened as a second library branch, not replacing this building. The first QR code is to an informational video, and then the second QR code is to a survey. Help us decide what goes where and what some final decisions are. What are some priorities? So you can find that downstairs. And if you'd like to contribute to the project, there's also a brochure down there that talks about our Growth Tree fundraiser. Summer reading program is almost here. There are, I believe, 2 items left on our Amazon wish list. And I think total it's like $23. So if you want to help us help the kids build their own archaeology set, that's their goal by the end of the summer. With all the checkpoints, you can donate an item from our Amazon wish list. There are these little quarter-page handouts that you can just grab and take home. Who's a pie baker in here? Yes, okay. We have our annual pie contest. It will be in July as normal, but we are signing up bakers now. This is an annual fundraiser that's a lot of fun and is going towards the expansion project. So if you'd like to be a baker, please see Jamie at the desk. But we'd love to have you enter our pie contest. It's really fun. Also, the Friends of the Library have their annual fundraiser. This is how you know summer is coming. It's all the fundraisers. They are having a landlocked luau this year, and it's up at Kachara Yacht Club. So tickets are now on sale, both online and at the desk and at the book nook. Today we've got Jared Fleming, lead project forester from the State Forest Office today, and we're really excited. This is important information. We are filming it, so if you do get up to get more tea or the delicious ginger snaps made by Sarah, just be aware that there is a camera recording right there. Thank you, and I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you all. I mean, this is a great turnout. I'm very excited to see you all here today. It means you all have an interest in the loose topics that were presented about what I was going to be talking about here today, which, first of all, I guess let me do an introduction myself. I'm Jared Fleming, lead project forester, as Ashley mentioned. I've been in the Levita field office since 2019. I've been with my agency since 2015 at various positions. My job now covers Huerfano and Los Animas counties. I'm an occasional subject matter expert for other areas other offices in my area, and I work with a wide variety of partners. U.S. Forest Service, Colorado State University is actually my employer, so I have a very tight connection to them. My agency is an extension of CSU. I work very close with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, Spanish Peaks Alliance for Wildfire Protection, the Levita Public Library, who is hosting us here today, as well as Huerfano and Los Animas County personnel, and a whole bunch more partners besides that. But back to why we're here today. First thing we'll be talking about is our outlook for the year. Mostly as it relates to fire, but fire obviously based heavily on climate, so this is going to be an outlook presented, was information compiled by the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Luckily did a lot of the heavy lifting for me, so I just kind of copied and pasted, but it's going to lead up to a lot of what I'm talking about today. The other topics will be mountain pine beetle, Ips beetle. Mountain pine beetle is a common name. It's some Dendroctonus scientific name I can't remember off the top of my head. Ips wasn't fortunate enough to get a common name. Ips is its scientific name and its common name. And then what to expect this year and what we can be doing. So, quick look at last year, 2025 here. Quite a few wildfire starts, just under 4,000, 270,000 acres. You'll notice that the Lee fire right here took a good chunk of that. So, we have 21 fires that started over 1,000 acres as well. So it was a busy year. 2024 had more fires, less acreage. And we don't know what 2026 looks like yet. we do have some information. We see, funnily enough, all the 2026 fires are names I'm not going to try and pronounce right here, but already over 1,000 acres for several of them. This 24 fire was the one that probably a lot of you saw driving up and down to Pueblo. These other two have been just on the other side of the Raton, well, the Mesa, Fisher's Peak Mesa, and Raton, and the state wildlife, or the state, there's a park over there I can't remember the name of right now that the middle one was at. Anyway, we're in April, and these are all over 1,000 acre fires we've already had. And this is all within 100 miles of here is the key. So the 21 fires in 2025 were not really all too close to us. I think to that effect, here's the breakdown. Los Animas saw 0.3% of the total acres last year, where Fano doesn't even show up on this chart. So it was pretty calm around here last year. We've already had the, 10,000 acres within 100 miles of us this year. So spring. How was our spring this year? Well, record low snowpack, well above normal temperatures. Spring fire potential is above normal. We've had elevated temperatures, increasing availability of fine fuels in eastern Colorado. It's where the fires have been occurring. And we've had a transitional year from La Nina toward neutral conditions with potential El Nino development this summer. That's leading to a little bit of forecasting chaos. It's kind of hard for climatologists to really tell us what's going to happen this year. And to that effect, we're getting into some of, what our winter summary was. Worst winter on record. 132 year record, 1.6 degrees above the previous warmest winter in 1981. Most of the state was drier than average. We have this weird little outlier around Pueblo for some reason, but rest of the state, you tell, real pockets are real dry. Here we are, not doing great. Average temperature, we were hot, we were here, we knew it. So, gives us a seasonal outlook here. Kind of know what happened with March. Continued warm, dry patterns. They predicted for April and May was near normal fire potential. That's pretty accurate. I'd say is a little bit higher than normal what they predicted. Some of this data is forecast and some of it's looking backward. It's kind of a combination of both in terms of helping to predict what the future is going to look like. So this one, what I just said, was the March outlook. I mean, obviously we're past March. We're not really looking forward to it anymore. The thing I like to highlight here, though, is it said that we had equal chances around where we are, bordering higher chances of precipitation. That definitely didn't happen in March. Sad trombone, I wasn't sure if we'd have the ability to play any sound effects, but we can all hear Homer playing that. So now what it kind of predicted for March, April, May. This looks more real. This is lower than below average, equal chances of pushed east. That makes a lot of sense to me now. Temperature outlook, on the other hand, I mean, it's still not great, but also accurate. So drought. Here's, again, they're giving some data from the past in February and what we were looking at. We had these pockets here in the north central state, where we are, wasn't looking great either. We had what was called, I guess, classified more as severe drought and moderate drought in this area. Fast forward to March, we are now extreme drought, bordering on a lot of severe drought areas. So, and it does have comparisons to where we were last year too. So, just as a frame of reference. And then from where we went from February to March compared. There's this little butterfly turned into a amorphous tooth. And there's some severe stuff going on down here now. So, drought conditions aren't great.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In terms of data, what's the difference between severe and extra severe drought?
Usually it's the length of time. Sometimes, I mean, it's a variety of factors. I believe what's weighted most is going to be length of time, but there can also be temperature factors, relative humidity, how quick things are drying out. And I have some local data I'll show here that'll kind of show how dry we've been.
Okay.
And how crazy the environment's been. But mostly that's what I think they use to inform the drought data on this.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, there will be an opportunity for questions at the end, but if you have a question that really makes sense to do now, like that one is a great example, go ahead and let me know and we can answer it now. So again, this is another one that was, let's see, it's meant for beginning of March through the end of May. And here we are in the yellow, which yellow in this case is drought development likely. But we have some drought persistence around here. They updated it now for middle of March through end of June. And again, we can compare them side by side. The brown is where drought is persisting now. So a drought hit us quicker and it's staying longer than we thought. So snowpack. First thing I'm going to draw attention to, this has some really high numbers, they're kind of blurred on the screen. This is from February, so this looks really good right now compared to where we're at. I mean, red, we have some orange, some yellow. February, this is where we were hoping, everyone kept saying, March is our snowiest month, March is our snowiest month. Well, March came and it wasn't our snowiest month. We dropped to pretty much red all around. This number down here is 25. This is our watershed. This is the Arkansas River watershed. So we're at 25% of normal snowpack at the end of March. This is today. We're at 12% of where we should be at this point in the year. Compared to last year, where we were at, we still weren't doing great. We were at 40%, but at least the rest of the state, we didn't have to worry about a lot of potential fire resources in the summer being diverted up here if there's going to be issues down here. But now, this year, who knows where the issues are going to be? It could be anywhere. We're drying out quick. Luckily, I am, tempting nature by saying all this right now, and hopefully it drops 3 feet of snow just to call me out on this.
Yay!
Everything I just presented, with the exception of these couple things right here, was all Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. That's a really long link to type in. Couldn't find a QR code. Easiest thing, DFPC Seasonal Outlook into your favorite search engine will get you to that exact same slideshow if you want to see any of it at your home. So now, moving on to stuff I have prepared. This is a local outlook, and this is all data that I have actually gathered from my own home. So this was 15-minute temperature readings taken from middle of March until end of April. We have this orange bar, or this orange separation here. That's our lows and highs. Shows a lot of huge swings here. We have these really wide gaps. What we want is these narrow. We don't want temperature fluctuations doing a lot of this. A lot of that isn't necessarily for anything other than the impact to our vegetation. A lot of you, especially those of you that have fruit trees, know that when we have these really high days that are followed by these really low days, we're not going to have fruit that year. So not as much for fire danger, but man, it's a bummer we don't have fruit. Next one, red is the average temperature. Took a 7-day average of each of these. You can kind of see this is about 60 degrees here, and we never really got lower than maybe 45 degrees. So I'll say 55 to 45, I think, is what about that comes out to in terms of our average. That's well higher than we're supposed to be for this time of year that I'm showing the data for here. So the warm days weren't isolated. It was persistent. 16 degrees above average of both what's around here and what the warmest stretch was. And let's see, this is where a big thing comes in, insects. We usually say the best time of year to be managing for insects is May through October, because that's when the temperatures are going to be 50 degrees and when they have wings. This started to be more of an April through November thing because of what we're seeing here. Blue is our measurable precipitation. We had 7 events. We tracked the precipitation in my office, and most of them 0.01 inches. I mean, that's basically we got our little measuring stick wet. We had 2 kind of noticeable events. None of it was meaningfully enough to offset the warmth. So, moving forward now to what all this does. Our trees are stressed because of all these environmental factors, and when they're stressed, they send out chemical signals, inviting a suite of other impact causing things out there, in this case, insects. So the first one we're going to talk about is mountain pine beetle. This is, some of the damage that you can kind of see when it gets to epidemic levels. This is key to know how big it is, or not sorry, how big it is, what it looks like. Actual size, I keep getting these two confused, but they are marked. All of these should be on seats. I have some helpful pamphlets on here. If you came in late and grabbed a seat towards the back or something, you may need to grab some at the end. But it does have all the diagnosing symptoms for everything I'll talk about in here. And more information about their history, habits, management, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, big thing here is its appearance. Big indicators, these what are called like the popcorn-like pitch tubes. This is the tree's response trying to eject the insect. These insects are native to Colorado. We expect them most of the time, and this is a tree's natural response trying to get rid of them. Usually a tree is able to respond, well I shouldn't say usually, in ideal conditions a tree is able to respond and get rid of the insects through these pitch tubes. But when the insects outnumber the trees and attack them in heavy numbers, the trees will face mortality. Let's see, there's something else I'm going to add to that. Might have to come back to it when I remember. Some other diagnosing factors with them. This boring dust here, you can see it kind of looks like sawdust. You can kind of see it, these pictures don't really show it in the crevices, but sometimes you can kind of see it in the bark crevices too. But what they're doing is they're eating the backside, they're severing the vascular system of the tree, which is what provides the food and water upwards. And in doing so, they're producing this frass, which is essentially their droppings. And then when spring comes, they exit through these holes. They're usually pretty round and easy to diagnose that way. These bigger holes, usually woodpeckers trying to get after them. So this map is a product of the U.S. Forest Service. Takes a little bit to digest, it's kind of busy, but right now where we're sitting, this dark blue, well first of all this yellow is kind of hard to see, but we've got little tiny pockets, yellow, yellow, yellow. It was mostly, here's Denver, so a little bit west of Denver, down west of the Springs, Woodland Park area, I guess northwest. Springs is more here, because yeah, here's the Black Forest. I know we had some Black Forest stuff going on last year too. So those were the little pockets we saw last year. Dark blue is potential where it could spread to. And a couple of these colors right here are a little intermingled. So that's why it looks a little bit more dramatic for 2026 than it may actually be in this picture. But suffice to say, it could spread fast and quick. They didn't actually show too much of the impact down here from what I was sent on this, but historically, this is kind of what happened last time, is it started in some ponderosa stands, moved westward, and then got into some lodgepole stands and did a lot of damage. Anyone that was in Colorado, let's see, it was, I think, I'll say 2008 to 2014 was the last mountain pine beetle epidemic, and killed thousands of acres of trees, and that's what led to like the Cameron Peak fire, the High Park fire, other big fires in the north were feeding on more dead beetle mortality up there. Reason I bring this up is because it doesn't mean mountain pine beetle is not going to come here, so I want everyone to be aware of it. We do have it existing here, and we just aren't necessarily expecting quite as dramatic impacts, but we want to be monitoring for it. So if you have lodgepole pine or ponderosa pine on your property, this is particularly relevant to you. I figure a lot of people here are going to be living in TJ country, but with ponderosa pine and lodgepole pine, this is what you really have to be worried about. And it's such a potential for impact that Governor Polis has started a task force specifically to address it. Has a whole variety of folks on it, from Department of Natural Resources, Division of Fire Prevention and Control, my agency, the U.S. Forest Service, and I think a whole bunch of different local, like I'm sure Colorado Springs and Denver are both coming to the table there. So a lot of partners, a lot of money is being focused to address this and get out ahead of it, which is really the big difference we have from the last epidemic. There's not a lot we can really do to stop it because it's going to impact so many acres, but what we can do is be prepared to respond to it afterwards. So this is all good news. It's at least on our radar this time. We're better prepared, but we're still worried about this here, and we're still worried about down here. And there's a lot of people here that, like I said, are living in the ponderosa or the pinyon juniper country, and this is where the Ips beetle comes in. and where it's going to be real important to know about it. So the Ips beetle, this one I do know I've seen a whole bunch, is very tiny. It's like maybe 1/8 of an inch long. The holes it produces, you can see right, like another woodpecker hole. So if you've ever seen a woodpecker hole, this is how tiny, it literally is the size of a BB, or you can almost shove a pencil tip into. So very tiny. Its characteristic is these Y or H-shaped galleries underneath the bark, and this is kind of showing that severing of the vascular system I talked about. Ips can be definitely a quicker killer. I've seen Ips go like a healthy tree to this fading to just no needles. Well, I'd say healthy tree to fading within a month, and then the needles can take a while to fall off. That I don't know a specific time for that. Healthy tree to red, I've seen as quick as a month. The mountain pine beetle is more like an 8-month kind of turnaround, at least usually. But we can still have the pitch tubes. It's really going to be the host specific on this one. There is a type of Ips that exists in ponderosa pine and lodgepole pine. We aren't expecting that to be impacting the ponderosa pine and lodgepole pine near as much as the mountain pine beetle, but what we're afraid of down here is the Ips beetle for our PJ stuff. So, where that comes in here. This is a drone picture I took out at Navajo Ranch. You can kind of see right here is Highway 160. I think this is 510 is the county road number that comes in. So pretty close. You know, what we kind of expect to see with along roadsides here is, yeah, you know, there's going to be root damage and things that could happen from them trenching roads. And so yeah, some mortality here is to be expected, but what we're seeing, and this I had a feeling wouldn't show up quite as good as I'd hoped, but that's why I went, all these red circles are all the dead trees I could find in the high definition picture I had.
Wow.
So quite a few dead trees in there, and there's a bunch I'm missing, I'm sure.
And
There's
that's current?
this was taken in January, so little old, but yeah, not very old. Yeah, and you know what we originally, or one thing we already know is that this is overly dense conditions. So this is trees competing too much for resources and already struggling, so they're giving out that chemical signal. And then they have the environment that's not giving them their normal resources. We have the drought, so it's even worse. But we do expect some mortality on the landscape. Usually 2 to 3 per acre, and an acre is about 200 foot circle. This is a little car there, so you know, maybe 10 feet long, 200 foot circle, I don't know, something like this maybe? Maybe there's 3 there, but if you do, you know, you're starting to get, this definitely has more than 3 per acre. And I'm actually thinking, this is probably, I should have done some sort of actual true scale on this, but I know this is well excessive of what we're going for in a natural landscape. This background is probably a little bit more dramatic on the other side. We aren't looking for something quite that separated, but you know, in a desired future conditions, we want something kind of between these two. This is definitely overly dense, and as a consequence, we're getting mortality both from the environment and from the beetles. I have another picture here of Navajo. I think this was not too far from here, just kind of heading a little bit more west on the same road. And looking, so this picture would have been, oh, sorry, this picture would have been looking more, I think the peaks are kind of right here. This one would be looking more towards the northeast, I think. So again, you can kind of see maybe some stuff by the road. These ones are actually kind of showing up better, but again, I did that, you know, dirty work. This was, I think, 40 total circles in here. So a lot of dead trees. And if you go else, I mean, you know, even somewhere back here, I kind of zoomed in on my high def and I couldn't find too much mortality. So it's not like it's everywhere. Sometimes it's just impacting here and then not spreading. Different conditions, different soil types. You know, even within Levita, sometimes we have different precipitation patterns. So it can, you know, be different microclimates. This is Major's Ranch. You can see Mestis here in the back. This one, I was hoping to get a picture closer to the fire scar, but that was a little biased because there's still a lot of mortality there from the fire scars. This one is more accurate of a representation that didn't have that added stressor of the fire from 2018. And it's not quite as severe, but there is a bigger circle back here. There's, I think, a good pocket of 10 trees altogether here. Some here, you know, it's on the landscape. This is not epidemic levels. It's still at endemic levels. It's still kind of doing what we're doing, what it's supposed to be doing, because when trees get overly dense, some sort of disturbance is supposed to come in. Normally, on this landscape, it's been, low-level fires, but we've excluded fire. So now what's trying to come in is insects to get rid of the overly dense competition. What we can do to get ahead of that is, act like we're the insects and get rid of the overly dense conditions. Come in and thin out some trees. So that was some good conditions here in more local Werfeno. But it's not confined to just here. This is a picture from Gardner. This is I think the 634 road heading up into National Forest Service up here somewhere. So, but you can already see some pretty clear pockets right away. I did some big circles to show. I mean, again, proximity to the road is part of it, but it's not isolated to that. And it's a lot of places in Werfeno County. So it's important to be aware of. It's important to see it happening, know the signs, how to get ahead of it. And what we usually do, so getting rid of those trees. Nature gives you a good indicator. Right now, if this were my property and fire season's coming up, all these are going to be the worst potential for fire. You go for those. Then you're going to see when you get in here, some of these trees are struggling. There's going to be some that have real thin branches. You're going to see some evidence of insects on others. Those would be ones to go for next. And actually, this is maybe kind of a good representation of a better desired future conditions. You have some good separation between crowns, you have some clumps, maybe you'd want to kind of knock these guys out, but this is a much better representation than, this is just a sea of green. This almost looks like, it's a forest, which we want, but this is still a forest too that's going to be less likely to be stand replacing fire behavior if it catches on fire. So the time of year that we usually say, like I said, is the 50-degree thing. This year, because it's been so droughty, I don't know that we should be doing this. I always tell people when I'm telling them how to manage for bugs, do as much as you can to remove trees, cut trees November through March, because those chemical signals that I was talking about, those come from the insects coming in, they come from the tree's stress from the environment, but also comes from when you start sawing into it. So anytime a tree is stressed, it's going to send out a signal that invites all those bugs in, and if it's over 50 degrees, they can fly there. So it's real easy for them to get around. But I also tell people it's a juggling thing. Every year you have to think about what your most important thing is. Are you more concerned about bringing more beetles in, or are you more concerned about losing all of your trees to a fire? This year, you should be more concerned about losing all of your trees to a fire. Wet years, be concerned about the beetles. But unless we get, again, I'm trying to taunt nature right now. I want it to prove me wrong. And hopefully you can be doing this normal thing in 2026, but for right now, this is what I'm saying is don't worry about bringing more beetles in. If you're a forest, if your house is buried in something like this, I would say definitely be more worried about the fire danger than the beetles. One thing, it's a little bit hindsight's 2020 here, fall and winter watering. Not a lot of people think about watering in the fall or winter. That's something we do need to think about. New trees especially. I actually wasn't aware of this specific guidance, but it takes 1 year for every 2 inches of diameter to establish for a new tree. So if you're planting, a 2-inch transplant, it takes 1 year. 4-inch transplant would take 2 years, and so on. I was aware you want to generally soak to a depth of 12 inches or more or something. You want to soak deeply because of tree roots. They aren't like grass roots. They go down. You want to get deep. That's why they have some stuff like a deep root fork, but you only want to have that fork itself going no deeper than 8 inches because it'll reach down that extra 4. But you can use any variety of implement really to water your tree. You just want to make sure you're doing it under the drip line and maybe even a little bit beyond. Tree roots are also growing outwards. You kind of want to promote that. And then here's another good guidance thing. 10 gallons for every 2 inches of diameter. None of you guys are foresters, so diameter for you guys is 6 inches above ground level. And we can always come measure a tree for you if you're not sure you live in town here. But yeah, just some good guidance here. This is something, you could either just type in CSU fall and winter watering. There was a QR code here. I went to it, it was no longer active. I tried to bring that up for people to scan, but I just say, yeah, CSU fall and winter watering. We didn't have any of those ones in my office, otherwise I would have brought those today too. But yeah, this is just, you don't have to do it every year. If we have a good winter, you don't have to water at all, but this year probably should have done some watering. if you live on something like 40 or 80 acres, you can't water all your trees. This is more guidance for, you know, if you're in town, or if you have 40 or 80 acres and you have some sentimental trees that you really want to make sure to keep up. This would be the guidance for that, but yeah, you're not going to be able to water 40 or 80 acres, so. Other things that can be done, there is, you know, the chemical signal I talked about that invites insects in. This little packet is essentially the signal that the chemical, or that the insects give when they filled up a tree. It's the no vacancy. They say, we filled it up, no more people can come, no more insects can come. So yeah, this is a synthetic chemical that's been developed to recreate that. It exists for mountain pine beetle and for spruce beetle and Douglas fir beetle, but not for ips that I'm aware of. My agency has typically had a pretty heavy hand in, like this is my agency's entomologist here actually stapling them to some trees. Because of how big the response is to mountain pine beetle this year, we are not engaging in that this year, but you can find these, I'm pretty sure, even on Amazon. Verbenone is one of the names for what's used for, well, I'd say go by whatever's in these, like don't quote me, quote the pamphlets I gave you here just to be sure. But yeah, it's a nice thing that like you don't have to, one of the things you can do for trees, especially sentimental ones, is spray them. This is a way you can avoid spraying them, and this is actually something you can do on a 40-acre, you know, thing. You go out and you put up, I don't know how many it'd be for 40 acres, but you buy like a 500, you know, maybe 500 for 40 acres. It takes a few days to put up, but you have at least a level of defense. So some of the stuff I gave out to you, you already have, but if you want to find it online, this is the easiest way. Type in my agency's name, CSFS, Home Ignition Zone, HIZ, Colorado State Forest Service, mountain pine beetle. Those are the quickest routes to find these digitally. Now I wanted to show you about what's being done locally, how we're kind of getting ahead of it as my agency, and hopefully this will work well. It worked before most people got here. I guess it's fine that size, we'll just do it here. And there's just music here we're not hearing, but zooming into Huerfano County, you can see the ski hill. This is the Panadero GNA project. Colleague Gabriel in the back was heavily involved with this. Actually, that's him right there. Yeah, you can see, again, the kind of thing we're doing. This is what we're increasing spacing. I should have paused it right there. Here's some of the equipment that's being used. You know, this is what we're doing on landscape level. This isn't something that necessarily individuals like yourselves are necessarily going to be, you're not going to go rent this equipment, but you may be able to hire a contractor that come out to do it. Let me go back just a hair, because that was a good example of what we're doing. Okay, yeah, so there we go, good. You know, you have some spacing between trees, we have some groups, some clumps. This is a more like spruce and fir kind of stuff, so it's definitely a little more closer together. The root systems aren't as developed, so when the wind hits, we have a lot of wind throw. And just spruce systems are different than pinyon and juniper. So we'd expect to see bigger spacing in pinyon juniper, but almost the same kind of approach. You know, we're looking for spacing between the trees, and then you can see some spacing between the ground fuels and the trees themselves too here. That was a big thing. There was a lot of, this area actually had downfall aspen that was as tall as up to here on me, and interwoven in it was a whole bunch of common juniper. So yeah, it was a lot of ground fuels. This is all just going to be grass now for the next, well, grass and oak I should say, for the next 10, 15 years, 20 years, and then we'll have, I mean, we'll even have some shrub stuff coming in before then, but at least we don't have all the ground fuels that we just had that big problem with. We did a huge thing here. And all these trees now have better access to resources, so, you know, if bugs come in, oh, that was exactly what I was going to say earlier. So that those pitch tubes are highly dependent on the environment because they are sap, and the sap is created from the water that the trees get. So in drought years, the trees are even less likely to pitch out those insects. That was the thing I forgot earlier. Yeah, so we'll have some of this equipment going on. Yeah, actually. So all these piles here, this was a lot of the ground fuels that they didn't masticate. Because this is like 4 to 6 inches deep of masticated fuel still here. And anything that was beyond that, we had to put in piles that ended up being burned. And yeah, you can just see, like, here's, I think a lot of aspens in the background, but again, you can just tell the difference in density.
How long did this take, what we're looking at?
To do this,
Yeah,
overall, less than a year. I don't know, Gabriel, do you know exact time frame they were, like, working?
Okay, so for the first part of the project, I wasn't here, but I know they started somewhere around 2024, the fall of 2024, and then they came back in middle of April and completed the mastication work in middle of June.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of work real quick too, is the nice thing. And so to take kind of a step back, what my agency does is typically not U.S. Forest Service land like this. We usually help private landowners. There is, U.S. Forest Service typically has a timber crew and silviculturists that are able to do all this on their own. Their timber crew is in Salida and I think their timber crew is in Canyon City and their silviculturist is in Salida. Either way, both of them have long distances to come to get here. This was a 20-minute drive for us. So it made a lot of sense through what's called the Good Neighbor Authority program for us to work with the feds and do some work on their behalf. And the other nice thing is, the feds, every level of government has red tape, but the higher up you go, the more red tape there is. So taking a step down from the feds to us, we were able to get rid of a little red tape. Maybe that shaves off something like anywhere from half a year to maybe only like a month, I don't know. But it is a little more efficient, and the thing that's mostly more efficient is that we're able to, go up here all the time. We could be up here regularly interacting with the contractors, and then the people from Salida or Canyon City just come down every once in a while to make sure that we're doing our job. So, yeah, works out well. It's a good partnership there. See if this video gives us anything else.
Jared, when you clear the land like that, what happens to the wildlife that use that lower structure as protection or food?
Yeah, so let me go back here real quick to the part where I can. The best part of this would be. Okay, so what's important that we did here is, first of all, kind of restored it to historic conditions that fire would have done. Right now, there's nothing that's really representing historic conditions on the landscape, so animals like variability. Pretty much all animals like habitat variability, and there's not a lot of variability on the landscape. It's all overgrown, overly dense conditions that we did from fire suppression. So we kind of reset this a little bit more to like historic reference conditions. And at the same time, we've also created, some boundary habitat. That's what a lot of animals, especially the ones that hunters go after, really like, is they like the ability to go hide in here and then come in here and eat all the grass that's going to be growing. So, what we've really done, and everything that we always aim to do, and luckily everything in natural resources is kind of built this way anyway, is consider all of ecology. And so pretty much anything that benefits reducing fire danger also benefits forest health, and anything that benefits forest health usually benefits wildlife habitat. So we don't usually have to make sacrificial decisions like we do earlier when I presented, the time of year that you're treating beetles versus fire danger. This is one of those times where you don't have to juggle as much. This treatment we know is going to bring in some new foragers, and the rodents that maybe lost this habitat here, they're going to find some new habitat out here. Especially with the U.S. Forest Service, within here we have the wildlife trees I mentioned, that 2 to 3 trees per acre. U.S. Forest Service actually goes a little higher for 8. And I'm not positive if any of these piles were left, but sometimes the wildlife specialists will leave piles like that specifically. Most of these were left to be burned specifically, but there will be wildlife habitat piles left sometimes too. Part of that's also dependent on what we know is in the area. There's no particularly sensitive species in this area. We're doing another project at Fisher's Peak State Park where there are a few species like the New Mexico Prable's jumping mouse that is on the threatened and endangered list. And so, yeah, we are sensitive about that when they are in the area. And even this year, we did some new things with some state land pieces that the Pinyon Jay is not on the threatened and endangered list, but it's up for consideration, and decision's supposed to be in 2028. So we were being a little proactive and trying to be ahead of it. So I mean, it's kind of the nice thing about us being in government is we're not out there to make the buck, you know, we're not trying to make money off this, we're trying to do what's best for the Colorado landscape. And we work heavily, you know, in this case there was, I'm sure, some US Forest Service wildlife people involved. If we're doing a project without, like Fisher's Peak is Colorado Parks and Wildlife, so yeah, we're definitely involved with some wildlife people out there. So yeah, we keep all that in mind. If we have to make the decision of what to juggle sometimes, we may have to do that, but in this case, I don't think we actually had to make any sacrifices. I think there's still wildlife, very happy, and if we were to do this consistently across the entire valley, you know, we'd probably mess with the ecosystem. But right now, this is such a small part, and it's going backwards towards where we were once when, you know, this is what's, like, it's surprising that life is adapted to survive in this, because this is unnatural. We call it all this.
Yeah, what forces, pre-fire suppression, created the historical mosaic in these places?
Pretty much fire. Fire was the main driver. Insects were another one. I mean, us suppressing fire doesn't cause insects to do this. A lot of them are built on cyclical waves, but fire, I think, is the big one.
And lightning strikes, role of indigenous people setting fires was, you know, what were those sources of fire?
I mean, yeah, it was both. And the big thing is that people weren't putting them out. You know, as much good as Smokey Bear, it's his last name, it's not, yeah. As much information as he gave us, he had some value, but at the same time, this is kind of his fault. He said, only you can prevent every forest fire, and we put out every forest fire for so long. We really needed to let some go, and that's what we've learned. We are starting, you know, if a high elevation fire goes, now we're realizing it's not worth our resources to go and fight that, but it's also something we removed from the landscape and needs to be brought back in. The problem is we got all this, and if fire comes in now, it's going to wipe it all out. So what we want is this, because now if the fire comes through, it's going to crawl along here, and maybe it'll catch these trees on fire. Then it'll come back to the ground. And then it'll meander and skip a whole bunch of trees, and maybe catch these on fire, and go back to the ground. But if a fire catches in any of this, it's all gone. And that's in good conditions. If we have extreme conditions, you know, winds blowing up this valley, it's all gone in a minute. It can be crazy quick how fast fire can move. I have one more video after this one. This is another thing can be done. So that was a good example of what can be done with spruce fir. This is also along Highway 12 here. This is in oak country. Still some pinyon juniper up in there, but a good example of what we try and do in these kind of areas. Another drone video. I really like flying my drone. So yeah, this is showing the before. I guess to give some preface to this, this project was SFA WUI funded, which WUI is Wildland Urban Interface, and then I believe SFA is Stevens Fire Assistance. It's a federal grant. It was awarded to my office basically right when I got here in 2019. So I wasn't at all involved in developing it. And it was loosely developed with Spanish Peaks Alliance for Wildfire Protection. But it was awarded to my office, so we had the money to spend and we hired the contractors to do it. Big thing is it was meant to be 150 feet off of the road. We were meant to, this grant application heavily recognized that Cuchara only has two ways to go, north or south, if a fire happens. So better fortify those evacuation routes if a fire were to happen. So this grant funded 150 feet on either side of the road, anywhere we could get participating landowners. So in this case, we didn't get it here, but we got it here. This is Echo Canyon Ranch, if you're familiar with it. On this side of the gap, or obviously past the golf course going the opposite direction. I'm sure if you've been to Guitar at all, you've probably even seen this. We did this, I don't know, it had to have been last year. Yeah, because Gabriel was here, so,
In June.
yeah. So yeah, this is before conditions, this is during, you can already see, we left just the pinyon and juniper, the exception of some mature oaks, we leave some clumps of those, because this was all oak. Everything that we chewed up here was pretty much nothing but oak, maybe some dead pinions or junipers, but if it was alive, we left it. But everything else was oak, just masticated it all. And you can get some oak diameters that are pretty decent, and if you can get those growing really tall, they start to kind of crowd out some of the babies and rob the babies of the resources. So that's what we're kind of shooting for here, is leaving, maybe create a new pinyon juniper forest here, and then leaving some oaks to crowd out the future oaks. Because one of the things about treating oak is we did this now, in 5 years again, the oak will be up to my hip. Needs to be mowed over again. At that point, it's something that can be done with like a brush hog, which is like a really aggressive lawnmower you can attach to a UTV. Let me get rid of that. So yeah, this is still maintainable by this landowner here in about 3 to 5 years is the nice thing that we're trying to do. Only other way to really keep this from becoming oak again is to paint all the stems with a chemical called Garlon, which is really takes a lot of time and probably costs a lot of money. So best thing to do, mow it down every 3 to 5 years, maybe every 10 years, and then try and crowd out the babies as much as you can with the mature stuff. And shoot in here, yep, there's the masticator working right now. He has a cover on this, so he's pointed at the highway right now, but didn't shoot anything on the highway. Some of these masticators can launch stuff like 300 feet if you're in front of it. Yeah, just these little clumps you can see we're leaving here. This is what I really like. So this after video occurred when we were super green. So it looks like this treatment made everything really green. But yeah, it's just nature being awesome. And this is showing how good it was last year. I mean, we were super green. This was, I think, in May of last year, April of last year, something like that. But yeah, that's, oh, went backwards. Let's see, I want to pause it, it's somewhere. Kind of same thing. So yeah, this is even kind of a little funny little popsicle thing, this is roughly about 2.5 times the height of this tree that we have this buffer around it because of a fire. So here's the highway, somebody throws a cigarette. Now, only this little bit catches the fire, people can get back here and have a chance. But even if it gets up to this guy now, 2.5 times the flame length in extreme conditions, hopefully it's not gonna get the guys behind it. So this is kind of, ideal kind of treatment. Some of this weirdness is based on there's a fence here, and also some of the weirdness is, along a highway you have kind of weird cut slopes sometimes as a consequence of making the highway. So the slope, even though it looks it's about the same, sometimes it's really steep there. So that's how you kind of ended up with this. The nice thing about this though is that if you, say this is your house, you can still keep a little bit of privacy from the highway too. It doesn't have to be something, yeah, you clear everything around your house and really protect it, but yeah, now people can't see you either. So treatments, even when they do look like clear cuts, can still have some privacy. And this is one of the few times I'll ever show something that actually does resemble a clear cut, because with oak, that's what we do. Yeah, just the before and after of what can be done, especially in oak country. Like I said, it's not going to look like this in 5 years, but it at least buys us some time for 5 years. That's what's nice. People in Kachara have a little bit less, holding their breath when they drive past Echo Canyon Ranch now. Plus this nice field here, fire resources are going to be very happy to be here if they need to be. Yeah, that's about 150 feet off the road, so go in the other direction, just a little different view of it. So it's pretty much into my spiel here, but have to throw out some shameless plugs. Both Huerfano County and Los Adams County have been hosting some CWPP input events. Attend if you haven't already. I have some specific. Hey, it jumped to it for me. New. This is the one that's coming up for Huerfano. Charter Community Center, June 25th, 11 o'clock. There'll be pizza, there'll be Gabriel. I think I'll try and go too because there's pizza and Gabriel, so plug for Spanish Peaks Alliance for Wildfire Protection in general. If you are an individual landowner and want some of this kind of treatment done on your property and are unsure how to do it, they have a guy on staff that can maybe come talk to you about it. Plus, the big thing that they do is they apply for a lot of grant money around here. So you can get bundled into a big project with them, maybe get some grant money to help fund that, because pretty much everything you sell is either federal money or grant stuff being funded. It's sometimes, anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 an acre, pretty regularly to treat forests around here. So more you can help, more you can get assistance with that, probably the better. And yeah, just SPOP is what they go by a lot. SPOP.org is their website. Watch Duty app, I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a whole bunch of things you can look up on the internet for like, oh, where's a wildfire? This is the most updated and reliable one I've encountered. I don't recall it being around that long, but I love it, so that's why I put it twice and highlighted it. Use it. It has the whole ready, set, go idea that we used to have here. Code Red, I think, switched to something else. Watch Duty app has that kind of integrated into it. So if there's an evacuation order for where you are, this will let you know. Even was letting you know about stuff within the state. So like up north by Fort Collins, there was a fire, and it was telling me where evacuations were just because it was actually close to my agency's campus up there. That's why it let me know. So yeah, can't recommend this app enough. Taking off my hat that I already took off from the State Forest Service, I am also a board member for the library. So donate to the growth tree, as she said. Be a friend of the Levita Public Library in some way, or serve on a board with them. Go volunteer at the book nook, do something. Like she said, community survey, QR code is somewhere nearby you. There's a bookmark somewhere here. She's probably got one in her pocket. Yeah, fill out that community survey, help out the library. Here's the one QR code I could for sure get to work. It's the Mountain Pine Beetle one. This one actually goes to a website. It's not the same pamphlet you got. So once I'm done with everything else, I'll bring it back to this if you want to scan this one. Because this goes to a more comprehensive website. Already mentioned the pizza, but again, pizza, the Charter Community Center, SPOP, they're going to be talking about the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And then this is just generally SPOP's outreach events, so you can talk to them about what they have planned.
Is that 11 p.m.?
I don't think so. I imagine that's a typo. Yeah, usually 11 a.m. for anything with involving Kuchar. Yeah, I don't think anyone in Kuchar stays up that late.
I was going to say.
So yeah, that is the end of my presentation. We have plenty of time for, well, I don't know when this is supposed to end, but I'll hang out as long as anyone wants to keep asking questions.
This is a curiosity question. Is that mountain pine beetle, the black ones we see crossing the road all the time?
Probably not. They're pretty small compared to something you'd be able to see on the road. 1/8 inch to 1/3 inch. Yeah, these are pretty small. These are a little bit bigger than the Ips beetles. Ips beetles max about 1/8 of an inch, but still pretty small. Yeah. There are also some other beetles you may see out there. There's the one with the long horns. That's a borer. A lot of borers come in. So all the beetles we're concerned about here are bark beetles. They sever the vascular system. They kill the tree. The borers don't usually kill the tree. They go into the wood itself, but they usually come in when the tree's on its way out anyway. So if you see them, it's usually not a good sign either. But the big thing is a borer will go into the tree. The bark beetles, you'll be able to like pull off the bark and see those galleries and stuff. Yes.
I don't know if you do this or not, but do you have any idea about predictions for which areas of Puerto County are most vulnerable to fire?
Most vulnerable to fire? Well, I can show you another resource here. So there's something called Colorado Forest Atlas. And I have like complete login stuff, so I can see everything here. What you'd be able to see as the public are these two on the top, the Wildfire Risk Viewer and the Forest Action Plan. So yeah, you type in Colorado Forest Atlas into whichever search engine you use, You do have to, I think, still log in, even though it says public. I think you have to get an account. I don't really remember. But you can come in here, and this has all the information you could really need. Let's see, so we'll skip the tour. One thing that, fire effects. Sometimes I forget where these ones are. Actually, I need to, because this one does have less stuff on it, it might not actually have the burn probabilities on here. So let me go back to this and log into the other one. So this one I think actually maybe, because there's, okay, yeah, public versus public logon. So public you can get without logging in, public login you would need a login for, but you can get to this one that way. And this one has what you would need on it. So right here, burn probability. This doesn't tell the whole story. This is meant to be combined with other data. But right now, you know, we have this kind of stuff. Let's see, you know, we're somewhere right here. No, wait, we're lower. Right around here. Right here, right now. So, of course, yeah, going south into the mountains, it's going to get a little more higher potential. Going north into you know, more PJ country and stuff like that, it's a little less. It doesn't mean it's zero, it's just lowest. But you know, you take it combined with other stuff. Here's the fire intensity. If a fire were to occur, this is how intense it would potentially look. You know, everything's gonna have some low intensity here. Not far from us, it gets high intensity pretty quick.
Oh, there's the West Peak.
Yep, yeah, West Peak West Peak's not gonna catch on fire, so it shows up real well. But yeah, I mean, Kachara, like Bear and Blue Lakes, like kind of right here, I believe. So yeah, this doesn't look good here.
When was the East Peak fire? Is that like 2013?
Yeah,
2013?
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So some of the other things we can look at on here that's important is, you know, if a fire were to occur, here's another thing. We have really crazy flame lengths that happen once you get up here in I mean, this is basically where ponderosa pine starts to grow. That red, and then it's all either ponderosa pine or spruce fir above there. Below there, it's pinyon juniper. And so yeah, if we have some flames, they're gonna be pretty tall. So you combine all these, and then really what this actually means, my agency puts it into what's called a composite. So, what my agency is most focused on is this. I don't know if that fully answers, I guess it answers your question and then some. Because this is where we're devoting most of our attention if we can. We're not saying, you know, we're not paying attention to outside reading, but this combines a lot. It also has like the values at risk. You know, there's a lot of homes here that are pretty spendy, and then homes out here could be spendy, but there are fewer and further between. So it's, you know, maybe that's part of what's influencing it. And then, you know, why Trinidad west of it, like, versus east of it, is such a difference too. But yeah, this is a great resource. I'm glad you asked the question. This Colorado Forest Atlas is a good resource for anyone to use if you have that kind of interest in just turning on and off all these layers and seeing what they said. And if actually, if you were curious too, you reference layers here. Large fire perimeters. Oh, you have to go to identify. I'll let Murray see that. Yeah, there you go. So it has. See, we could have found out if somebody in here didn't know. 2013 right there. So it has a whole bunch of information on here if you need to look up anything like that. This is actually, when SPOP applies for grants, they have to use this specific layer actually, and it makes them much more competitive if they're saying they want to work in the red, but if they have, you know, a whole bunch of stuff in the green, that can be competitive too. So.
Thank you.
You mentioned a couple of times how forests and ecosystems benefit from fire. And I'm wondering if there's any thought about behavior of fire being a part of an evolutionary process.
Yeah, I mean, we do know that for sure. There are fire adapted species. Ponderosa pine is a good example. So with a lot of species, they either have fire resistance or fire resilience. Ponderosa pine has adapted a really, really thick bark. So it has a higher, when those creeping low fires come in, it hits the bark and doesn't kill the tree. Whereas lodgepole pine, it has really thin bark, but it's really resilient. All of its seeds, it has a whole bunch of seeds in the seed bank below. So when a fire comes through, it responds really well. It sends up, 10,000 seedlings at once. You can see that a whole bunch in the burn scar here with how well the lodgepole has responded afterwards. It's a fire adapted. That's my dendrology teacher called it the tree that lives to die by fire. So I mean, it's trees specifically are meant to do it. What they're not necessarily meant to do is always respond to standard, like what we'd have right now up in Pichard would be a standard placing fire. And the spruce fir, that's kind of used to it because it's so dense. In the ponderosa, it's not used to it, and it'd struggle to respond. It's meant to be a resistant species and have that low severity, low to mid severity fire, not be standard placing. So species have adapted with fire, but species have not necessarily adapted to the fire conditions that they're about to be facing. And that's a consequence of us.
Is Wolf Creek the lodgepole, what destroyed all those trees on Wolf Creek Pass?
I'm not positive on that one.
There's a huge amount of dead trees.
Yeah, I would imagine, I would bet, because the passes are usually a little bit higher, so I'd imagine it'd be like the spruce budworm or but yeah, I'm not positive. Be elevation dependent. Because lodgepole, I think, tops out around 10 to 11, and then the spruce, I guess spruce can start as low as 95. So there's a little bit of crossover between that elevation band. But yeah, if you're in high elevation to approaching that tree line, it's almost certainly spruce budworm, spruce beetle, or Douglas fir beetle.
Okay, it was shocking.
Yeah, I mean, up by Pichara, everything that happened, Barren Blue area, that's all spruce budworm, spruce beetle, Douglas fir beetle, which is another project we're actually currently working on, Trinchera Road. Well, Gabriel wrapped most of that up last year, but yeah, we'll be wrapping the rest of it up this spring as soon as we can get in there. So.
Are you doing anything more like plant-based some West Peak?
Not yet. So part of the problem that we're having with the U.S. Forest Service land is that one of the red tapes we can't cut through is the National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA.
Wilderness?
Well, part of it's wilderness, and if it's not wilderness, it still needs to be NEPA cleared, which means evaluated. And just because it hasn't been cleared doesn't mean it can't be. There's a whole variety of clearances it can obtain. When we've been working under for everything up by Kachar is what's called a categorical exclusion. So they kind of look, it's a small acreage bundle, they looked at it and said, yeah, this isn't even big enough, I think we have to worry about it, we'll just auto pass it, but it's kind of hard to do chunks of forest at a time with how much back and forth there is. There have been examples of other forests doing forest-wide NEPA clearance, and we're hoping to have that done on the Pike San soon, so then we could operate anywhere that wouldn't be wilderness, or roadless. There's some roadless areas we can't operate on either, but yeah, for the most part, we have everywhere that needs treatment on our radar, but whether or not we can go in there right now remains to be seen.
Yeah, we have a property on 8,200 to 9,200 feet in Levita Pass.
Mhm.
And then we had mitigated and saved about 20 acres of old growth mixed conifer. Now the fire passed through there, and it was a brown fire noodling through the forest like you showed over there. And the other thing that happened, we had scorching at the lower part of the trees, but massive numbers of Clark's nutcrackers came in and were gathering seeds and caching them all over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so that's another thing, like fire is the same kind of thing we do with treatment that showed that the wildlife response is usually positive. Whether it's us coming in with mechanical stuff, whether it's a fire, we're setting it more to historical conditions, which is kind of our problem. Is we know the wildlife love those historical conditions, they were around forever loving it. We came in and we took away all the habitat variability. And so yeah, that's another good example of how disturbance in some form will probably be beneficial for the wildlife.
So if we had a fire, it seems like our biggest threat would be West Peak and across to Gachora for our water supply. How long would that contaminate our water?
Well, it really depends on, let me bring this up here. So, you know, our water concern is the Arkansas River watershed here. I wish I had a more handy map I could bring up of the watershed that actually feeds Levita and Walsenburg. I think the biggest concern for it has already happened, because yeah, the Cacharis River heading into, like, that's really, I mean, if something happens north of Cachar, I guess we could have some problems, but really with like, I don't know, I guess I'm not a water engineer.
Well, water intake is right south of the golf course. That's
Yeah.
where the Levita and Walsenburg water comes from the Cacharis up that way.
Yeah, yeah, because what'll be the problem is like, usually what happens with water sources is the ash and stuff that comes in afterwards, or flooding that flows out the water system. So we've already had a whole bunch of flooding in the Cacharis River, and, you know, right at the gap there, and it hasn't impacted, like, I think where it kind of bottlenecks is right there. So I don't think we'd have too much of a concern there, but where we would have the concern would be the contaminants from stuff going into the water. This is one of the things, like, I know, you know, Levita as a town doesn't have a whole lot of money to be thrown at stuff, but, you know, Denver and Colorado Springs, they have they're paying our agency a bunch of money to go up and do work for them to protect their watersheds. So it'd be nice if we could get some sort of, you know, buy-in from Levita and Walsenburg to do that. But I mean, Walsenburg is, you know, obviously probably got a lot of other things going on right now, so. And Levita doesn't have a lot of money, so.
So what's in the fire retardant, that red, that they spray out, that they put on those fires?
Not stuff you probably want in your water either.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but yeah, I know people get rashes if they get it. Not everyone, but some people get rashes if they get it on them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.